welcome here everyone. Today I'm going to be setting some yearly spreads up using my new Ohuhu markers. These are the Pupe dual tip brush pens, and I have never seen these before. They are water-based brush pens. I'm going to talk about these more as we go throughout the video, but I've got the two sets. I have the water-based dual tip brush pens, and then I also have these dot tip brush pens, which they've got a thin brush on the other end. So one end is a dot tip, and then one end is more of like a felt brush, a really nice firm end for calligraphy, which you're going to see later on. And I'm choosing a bunch of colors for this color palette. I'm setting up Patty's yearly spreads. So I've been working on this bullet journal for Patty for the past few weeks over on TikTok Live. If you guys have been joining me there, please say hi down in the comments. And if you haven't, please do. I have been going live almost every weekday evening to work on bullet journals, and we do the entire thing together. We'll choose the theme together, and then we'll find, a good layout for our title page. Then we'll choose a color palette. We'll choose a font. We vote on everything. So it's a really choose your own adventure kind of experience where we all work together to make a unique bullet journal. And this one is for Patty. So I'm starting off just by setting up a name page for her. And to test out these Ohuhu brush pens, I decided to do a really fun, just kind of like print where I could do a bunch of different shapes and designs and stuff. So I've got some little roses, some little pink flowers. Those red dots are going to be ladybugs. And I'm just using a bunch of my Ohuhu dual tip brush pens to add in all of these little doodles. Now, the first things that I noticed about these brush pens are, number one, they are super vibrant. The colors are so bold, so sharp, really unlike any markers that I've seen before. They're very, very smooth. And I know if you guys have been looking at Ohuhu markers, you've probably seen their alcohol markers all over TikTok. I know I have. All of those coloring talk accounts that do these really beautiful coloring pages where they blend colors and, create a bunch of unique textures. Usually what they're using for that is alcohol markers, and Ohuhu sells amazing alcohol markers, which I have never tried because alcohol markers, as beautiful as they are, unfortunately don't work well in bullet journals because alcohol markers bleed through onto the page behind, which is why for those coloring book accounts, they'll always have a little protective layer between the page they're currently coloring and the next page. So as beautiful as alcohol markers are, they don't work in a bullet journal because they just bleed through and the back page is unusable. And so these markers, even though I haven't actually used the Ohuhu alcohol markers, I feel like these are the closest markers that I've ever used to alcohol markers because they're just so generous with their ink is the best way I think to describe them. They're really, really juicy. The colors just blend together really well. They're not streaky. I know oftentimes with water-based markers, when you're coloring in a large area, you can see the streaks, you can see your strokes. And with these markers, I did not experience that. They're really, really creamy, juicy. Those are all just words that come to mind. And in that way, they remind me a lot of alcohol markers, even though they're not alcohol markers. I guess the flip side of this though is that they do bleed through the page a little bit more than other water-based markers would. Now I'm using a 160 GSM bullet journal here. This is one of the ones from my shop, and when I use other water-based markers, I can color, even 3 layers of marker, maybe even 4 sometimes, and not notice any bleed through. And so I'll use that to, layer different, with my calligraphy, I like to often add a second layer of ink, which you will see me doing with these markers. But normally that wouldn't bleed through at all. With these ones, it does a little bit. I would say it's fairly negligible. The page behind is still completely usable, but that is the flip side to them being so juicy and so creamy, is that they do bleed through a little bit more than some other water-based markers that I have used. Now, the markers that you're seeing me use right now are also the Ohuhu markers, but these are those dot pens that I was talking about. And so one end is a dot, which I used as part of the pattern, and then the other end is almost like the Tombow Fudenosuke or the Pentel Fude Touch. The other end is almost like that, which I love. I have never found such a large pack of colored markers like that. I know the Pentel Fude Touch, they come in packs of, I believe 10 is the most that you can get. And I do love some of the colors that Pentel has, but this is just such a huge set compared to that I love having the color. And now what you see me doing is taking the fine tip end, which is more of a fine liner, and adding a little drop shadow to my future log heading. And so this was all done with one single marker, the whole future log heading. So I did the calligraphy once with the brush pen. I darkened up the bottom half by using that same brush pen and going over a second time. And then I used the fine tip to add that little drop shadow. And how beautiful is that lettering using just one marker? I am so obsessed. I love just how freely these markers flow. So this is the future log. I fit all 12 months onto one future log spread, and Patty's journal does span from July of 2025 all the way until June of 2026. And so at the time that I'm recording this, we are working on March on TikTok. So like I said, we've been doing every month together. So let me see if I can remember all the themes we've got in this one. For July, we did a beachy theme with some really fun calligraphy lettering. For August, we did a rainbow Dutch door sort of theme. For September, we did a vintage doodle theme with the cutest collaged weekly spreads. For October, we did a Halloween theme, and I am not normally a Halloween person at all, but just the layout and the composition and the colors that we chose together on live for October, it's like my favorite month in the journal, even though I don't like Halloween and it's a Halloween theme. I don't understand how that works, but you guys should check it out if you haven't already. I will be posting a flip through of that whole journal here on my YouTube channel once it's done in the next couple of weeks or so. Then for November, we did this fall wreath, and we used a little acorn as the O in November. And for December, we did a Christmas theme. We brought in a bunch of craft paper, a bunch of washi tape, and white gel pen, and that was a really fun one to put together. And then for January, we did a kind of cozy winter gear theme with toques, mitts, snowflakes, all that kind of stuff, a lot of blues and purples. And then for February, which we just finished tonight on live actually, we did this candy hearts theme, which I think was originally done by Amanda Rylee. Normally, I don't replicate another person's theme exactly. Normally, I'll take some doodle ideas and then take a layout idea from someone else and kind of patch things together. But this one, Patty said she wanted pretty much an exact copy. So I think Amanda Rylee was the first one to do this theme, but it's her really cute candy hearts theme for February. And then we just started March. So all we've done so far for that one is the cover page. It's a coffee theme, but we kind of mixed it with a pegboard and Polaroid type of theme and created a really cute little title page. So definitely feel free to join us on TikTok Live on weekday evenings if you would like to grab your journal and come journal along with me. The spread that I'm finishing up in the video here right now is Patty's reflection and goal setting spread. So on the left, you can see it says looking back, and the right side says looking forward. So there's just a few prompts for reflection on the past year, the past 6 months, whatever, since this one starts in July. I didn't set a date. And then looking forward as well, things to keep doing, things to start doing, things to stop doing, just kind of setting the tone for the months or years ahead. Moving on to the next page here, I'm doing Patty's gratitude log. So gratitude is something that she wanted to be really central throughout her journal. She's got actually a spot on her monthly dashboard every month as well for gratitude. And so here I'm using the dot end of these dotted brush pens to mark out the different lines, and every week she's going to write a line, a sentence of what she's grateful for. In her monthly spread, she does this on a daily basis, but in the yearly spread, she's going to kind of recap the week with something that she was grateful for. So that's what's happening on the bottom here. Of course, I'm going to go in and use the brush tip again for some really fun calligraphy up at the top and continue on our pattern. Now for me, these dot tip markers are really making me want to go back to a pen and paper journal. For those of you guys who have been following my bullet journal account for the past little while, first of all, you'll know that I took a long break from YouTube and I'm still not fully back to YouTube. I'm mostly just sharing flip throughs when I do finish a custom bullet journal, but I myself haven't been using a physical journal since 2022. And I switched to my digital bullet journal, which I genuinely love, and I had no complaints, and I didn't honestly think that I would ever go back to using a physical journal just because it's so simple when it's digital. You know, I never need to make my own theme. It's a customizable digital bullet journal that I created. So every month I just get to choose between 25 different themes. All I have to do is click it and it's in my journal. You know, it's so much easier than having to come up with a theme. It's also so much more compact. You know, when I want to bring my planner with me, I just grab my iPad. I don't grab my journal, the 3 pens I'm using for that month. You know, like, it's so simple. But getting back into this journal, and especially getting new supplies like these dual tip brush pens and like the dot markers, which I've always wanted, is really making me want to get back into using a physical journal. I just know, like, the main function of my physical journal is always my daily spreads. Like, I like to map out every single thing I'm going to do in a day as a stay-at-home mom, and a little, you know, I've got my little bullet journal side hustle. I want to mark out every task that I need to do in the day. And normally I'll just like draw circles for every task, but I have wanted these little dot markers for so long to just like dot in my task list. And so don't be surprised if you catch me opening up a physical bullet journal for the first time in years for myself and using these little dotted markers. Now, to put the finishing touches on the gratitude title, I'm again using that same beautiful sort of wine color from Ohuhu, just darkening up the bottom half. And what I do for that is I always just choose a dot along the page and like color in that letter up until that dot, you know, so that my line stays really consistent and straight. And then I'm using the fine tip of this brush marker to do a little drop shadow. I always just do a line just kind of a hair away from the letter itself on the right and bottom side of the letters, if that makes any sense. And there we have it. These are Patty's yearly spreads. We've got her name page up here, then a future log for all 12 months in her journal. Then we have her looking back and looking forward spreads for reflection and goal setting. And finally, she's got a gratitude page for weekly gratitude.